Told my fiancée her tattoo of my late brother makes me uncomfortable. Now she's upset and distant, accusing me of ruining a beautiful tribute. My older brother, 30M while I'm 29M, passed away 3 years ago in a motorcycle accident. This fucked me up severely, still does. He was my best friend and we had that whole inseparable since we knew each other type shit. Even if he was older, he was never the stereotypical older brother bully sort and I loved him for that. Anyway, my fiancée, who I'll call Bella, is 28F, and met him only a few times but always said she admired our bond as she has no real siblings of her own. Only step but they aren't close. A few weeks ago, Bella surprised me with a fucking tattoo she got in memory of my brother. It's this pretty fucking big, realistic grayscale tattoo of his face with a little Snoopy icon beside it on her upper arm, with his nickname we use, and his birth and death dates underneath. When I saw this, I was fucking stunned. She said she did it as a tribute to him and to support me BC she knows how much I still struggle with grief. I honestly didn't know what to say at first, but the more I sat with it, the more it bothered me. I told her, gently, as much as I could tbh, that I appreciated the gesture but found the tattoo really uncomfortable. Like it's unsettling to see his face on my fiancé's body, like it's too much, especially since they barely knew each other. She got upset and said I was being weird about a nice gesture and making her regret doing something beautiful, her words. Now she's distant, and my mom thinks I should just be thankful someone loved my brother enough to memorialize him. But first off, I didn't ask her to do this. Now I'm stuck with a fiancé that won't even talk to me properly, and my brother's perfectly black and gray eyes staring at me when I'm laying beside her. And honestly I don't even want to think of how horrifying having sex would be with that on her arm. Am I being unreasonable? Asshole-ish? Is it in my right to ask her to get it covered up or like zoinked off? I'm adding some additional details because I don't know how to respond individually. My fiancé and I both have tattoos and many of them. I have smaller ones, she has bigger ones. To my knowledge, neither of us are mentally ill in any capacity and we aren't on medication. I can't believe I have to write this, and ever since my reaction she has been wearing longer sleeved shirts in the daytime. At work she has to anyway, but that's for home too. It's only during bedtime that I really see it with her wearing tanks and it physically hurts. Lol. Update 1. Ida for telling my fiancé her tattoo of my dead brother makes me uncomfortable. Hi guys. I don't know if anyone cares enough for this, but for the few that do, here's an update to the situation. Lol. After breakfast this morning, at around 7:30, it's 10:34 as I write this BTW, I sat down, already was sitting down after eating but yes whatever, with my fiancé and spoke about the fucking tattoo again. I basically echoed all the comments I've received, which by the way I'm so grateful for the most part because some of them were crazy. Anyway, I told her again that the tattoo made me very uncomfortable and wasn't the leap she needed to take to comfort or support me on my journey with grief, as I still had a firm belief that she didn't do this in a malicious manner. She was quiet initially and then asked if she could explain herself and I said I was willing to listen. To summarize, she said she simply got the tattoo because she thought it would symbolize the extent she would go to love me and support me, and said in that way, I had both people I loved so much in the same place. Her words, not mine. She did say she was sorry and that she wouldn't have done it if she knew that I wouldn't have liked it. I asked her why she hadn't spoken to me about it prior and she said it wouldn't have been a surprise then, which is what she wanted it to be. She also said, and I'm remembering this fresh and internally cringing as I write this lol, that the tattoo was meant to be a symbol of a new beginning because we're going to get married in a couple of months, and she wanted to turn over old leaves. I'm still stuck on what she meant, so I'd appreciate any word sleuths helping me in this. To wrap it up, I said I didn't want to end our relationship over this and I really wanted to move on from it, but that she needed to either cover it up or laser it off, and she was, to say the least, not very happy about it. Said a cover up would be complicated and would take too long. Said laser might be painful and look scary from the videos. Also said she likes how the tattoo looks along with her other ones and asked if I'd be okay with her just covering it up either with clothes or foundation. I was as firm as I could be. Mind you, this is the woman I've loved for 5 years straight, so admittedly I'm soft, but I reiterated that I wanted it gone either by a cover up or laser. She was quiet then and that's honestly where the conversation ended. She already left for work at 10 and I'm going to start my own work now, as I work remotely from home, after I finish this. Anyways, I hope this works out and I would appreciate any advice. I did read a comment that shamed me for taking this to Reddit instead of speaking with her first, so I will prioritize our communication first, but will hopefully keep this updated. Thanks for all the help for now. Update 2. Ida for telling my fiancé her tattoo of my dead brother makes me uncomfortable. It's final, I've broken up with her. I don't even know why I'm writing this other than to get some closure on this situation and maybe some support. I've read so many comments this morning and while it didn't go the way I or anyone anticipated, I've taken my decision, though I'm struggling to accept it myself. Last night when Bella came home from work, I made sure to make dinner and asked if we could talk after dinner in the back garden. She said that was okay but that she needed time to shower and unwind before dinner so she'd be a bit late, but that I could start eating. I agreed and she went upstairs while I ate the dinner I'd made with the TV on in the back. She came down about an hour later, while I was winding things up and washing the dishes from earlier, and I offered to get her a hot plate and she agreed, saying she'd eat it on the couch in our living room rather than the kitchen where we have a dining table, also, where I ate. I said that was fine and I brought it over to her, and as I gave it to her while she was sitting, her hand out to take it, I somehow managed to drop it and the hot spog bowl went all over her. I immediately apologized profusely and went to grab her some water and tissues/towels, but she just started screaming at me. I do not want to make myself sound like a victim in this, so I want to be careful with how I write this. But yes, she started saying that I did that on purpose and that I was punishing her for our conversation that morning and for the tattoo in general. I immediately defended myself as I brought over a damp towel and some tissues and said I knew I had a steady grip on the plate, so there was no way I had done that on purpose, also saying that I always spoke respectfully and calmly to her about the tattoo situation and that I'd never escalate things like this. Things beyond are a blur, but we had a big fight and she broke many, and I mean many, of our glasses and plates, even trying to pull off a cabinet door in our kitchen that was already not in good condition, and threw anything around her at me. By the end of it, I said I couldn't be with her anymore and that this was the last straw, and left for my parents' house. I haven't returned and I haven't picked up any of her calls or messages, and I'm honestly afraid of what she'll do to my belongings if she so easily broke so much of the shit we bought together. I'm still at my parents' house and I haven't told them either, but I think this is it. This may be the last update because I don't know if I can focus on this when I have everything else I need to resolve. Update 3. Hi, posting this here for closure. Ex-fiancée has gotten a removal scheduled for next week and has called, texted, and gotten her friends to message me and to apologize. I responded and asked to speak, and we met yesterday at my parents' house to speak, with my parents mediating. Just for safety and efficiency. She apologized numerous times and asked to give her a chance, saying that she's never been like this before and it's all a result of a stupid thing she's now embarrassed and ashamed of, referring to the tattoo. I reiterated that it wasn't even really the tattoo that had caused me to leave at the end of the day, but rather her explanation for it and how violent she got with me so fucking easily. My parents were on my side for this, but asked me to be gentle prior, and so I was. Told her I couldn't see us being together any longer, so that is that. Through our conversation, lasted probably the entire late afternoon and evening, I did learn other things. While we were dating much younger, on and off, she had kept 2 pregnancies from me and had gotten an abortion. I don't blame her for this action, as I understand the many multifaceted reasons she must have had, and she does have that right over her body. This isn't of much relevance, but I just wished I had known because we could have better prevented it, gotten better condoms, so she didn't have to go through it. Didn't even have to tell me, I feel, as even if she implied that the things we were using was probably ineffective, I'd change them to prevent what was clearly unwanted at that stage. Anyways, I went over to take my things this morning and we are on better terms. She'll be leaving the house, as it's under. Update 4. She'll be leaving the house, as it's under my name, end of month. I'm writing this at 2:41 because my brain refuses to sleep lately and I just got back from the house again after doing another round of packing up her stuff and some of mine. It's so fucking weird, the quiet, like the house was loud even when it was silent, and now it's just still. I went with my dad earlier in the evening because he insisted, said he didn't want me there alone since everything's been charged, and at first it was normal awkward like okay that's her box, these are her books, that's her stupid blender she swore made the best smoothies known to man, it didn't, and then I opened the top shelf in the spare room closet we used as storage and found a small shoe box that wasn't ours. Inside were printed photos of my brother. Some were from his Instagram from years ago that I know because of the bluish filter he went through a phase with. One was the one we used for the funeral service card, and then a few I swear are screenshots from other people's posts because the cropping was all messy and it had like usernames at the bottom cut off. There was also a napkin folded with a sketch of his face like the stencil lines the tattoo artist would have used, and a receipt from the studio paper clipped to it with a little Snoopy head doodled in the corner. Under the napkin was a letter that started "Hi, D," we both called him D, in her handwriting, and my stomach just fucking fell. I didn't read the whole thing because I felt gross, like I'd be reading something meant for someone who isn't here, but I saw enough to know it wasn't something malicious. She wrote about feeling like she'd been adopted into a family by proxy through me and that she never had that and it made her want to tie herself to a thing that didn't die. She wrote how she was sorry she didn't get to know him properly and that she thought if she honored him, she'd be honoring me in our future, and that maybe if I carry him he can carry us. I put it back and shut the box, and I honestly had to go stand outside and breathe in the cold air for a minute. My dad came out and asked if I was okay, and all I did was point to the stars like an idiot, and he just nodded because dads can somehow read you when you're saying nothing. We finished packing and he took 2 boxes to the car and I sat on the bottom step of the stairs, tapped through my phone pointlessly, then texted her and said there was a box she might want to take herself and I'd leave it on the dining table, and to let me know when she wanted to pick it up so I could not be there. Earlier in the day, the tattoo studio called me. They called me because she listed me as her emergency contact ages ago and didn't change it, and her removal appointment is scheduled for Friday afternoon, and they were confirming it and needed to make sure she had someone who could pick her up because sometimes people get woozy after. I said we weren't together anymore. The woman on the phone went very quiet and then apologized and asked if there was anyone else she could call, and I gave them her stepmom's number and then ended up on the phone longer than I expected because the woman turns out to be the same artist, or at least the one who finished the shading on the piece, and she just said she hoped I didn't mind but she wanted to tell me something. She said when Bella came in she kept asking if there was a way to make it look soft so it didn't feel like a memorial, ironically, like she wanted him to look alive, the artist's words, not mine, and apparently the artist had suggested doing a symbol, like dates and Roman numerals inside a Snoopy outline, or a quote, or even just the Snoopy by itself, and be refused and cried and said she needed his face, because I need him to look at me when I look at him, and my heart did that thing where it clenches and empties at the same time. The artist said she only told me that because she thought maybe it would explain the weirdness without making it worse, and I thanked her for caring at all and then hung up and sat there staring at nothing for 10 solid minutes while the kettle screamed. I didn't write this before because I didn't want to give it power, but our kitchen looked like a crime scene. After the fight, not blood, glass. I went back yesterday with a roll of big contractor trash bags and a broom and actually counted the plates in my head as I swept them up, and it pissed me off that I knew exactly how many there were because we bought a set of 8 when we moved in and there were 5 left, and you can't buy 3 of a set, it doesn't work that way. The cabinet door she nearly ripped off, my dad fixed it in like 10 minutes with a drill and wood glue like he's been waiting his whole life to do small acts of practical heroism. He was weirdly thrilled. He replaced 2 of the hinges because he said they were cheap crap and I let him have that tiny victory. I replaced the cheap light bulbs that always flickered, and I swear small boring things felt like washing myself off, if that makes sense. My mom came over while we were there and we had tea at the half-cleared dining table. She cried, which made me nearly lose it, because she apologized for the first day when she told me I should be grateful. She didn't know the extent of what happened after, and I hadn't told her everything, and she hates confrontation but hates me being hurt more. She brought a small Ziploc bag, which is very mom behavior, and inside was my brother's old Snoopy keychain, the rubbery one he used to hang from his backpack zip when we were kids. I lost my composure a little bit then, not an ugly cry but the ugly inhale right before it, and she handed it to me and said I should put it on my keys, and I did. It looks ridiculous because my car key is this modern black thing and then there's a floppy little cartoon dog bouncing off it, but seeing it when I pull into a lane or out of a parking space makes something in me loosen. Tonight there was another weird detour. Her friend showed up at the house while I was there, unannounced, which, I don't like that, but okay, because she was grabbing some of B's clothes and plants. She looked tired and I realized everybody is tired. She told me B had a panic attack yesterday and that she's going to start therapy, which I hope is true, and then asked me if I could please confirm Friday's appointment to the clinic because they kept calling her and she didn't pick up. I already gave them stepmom's number so I told her that, and then the friend gave me a small envelope with money towards the broken kitchen stuff in the cabinet, and a handwritten note. I read it later, sitting on my childhood bed like a teenager after a bad day, and it was the most straightforward thing she's said since this started. I'm sorry. There's no excuse. I will pay for everything I broke. I will have the tattoo removed. I won't show up unannounced. Thank you for letting me apologize in person at your parents'. I loved you and I know that doesn't entitle me to a second try. I'm going to work on myself, not for you, for me. Please leave the shoebox. It's not a creepy shrine, I promise, it's just things I made or saved because I didn't know where else to put my feelings. I'm ashamed of how I acted. I know shame isn't a plan, but I don't know what else to tell you except I'm sorry. It was shaky handwriting and I think I'll keep it, not because I want to keep her but because it's a reminder of where my line is. Also found a USB in the desk drawer with my old tax stuff and nearly pitched it in the box out of habit, but I plugged it into my laptop because I didn't remember having one, and it was all wedding shit. Spreadsheets, budgets, venue photos, and then a folder labeled letters. I shouldn't have opened it, I know, but curiosity is a disease. There were 3 files. One to me, one to herself, and one to D. I read the one to herself because that felt the least invasive, and it was basically a time capsule of the last few months. She wrote about feeling like she keeps getting left behind because everyone has siblings and she doesn't, and she hated feeling bitter about it, and she wrote about losing her stepbrother when she was 19 to an overdose. She's never told me this, which, whole other thing, and how the only time she felt like part of a unit was with us, me and my brother, and that she felt possessive of that, even though it wasn't hers to be possessive of, and then she wrote that she thought if she did something permanent and painful for me, I'd read it like a love language. It hurt reading that because it made me see the hole inside her and made me mad at myself for not knowing. And then I stopped before I did the thing where I start forgiving in my head and then wake up in a month having undone my own decision. I returned the USB. We met this afternoon at a coffee shop by the park because it was somewhere neutral and public and not my parents' house. I sat by the window facing the street because I always do that, and she came in wearing a hoodie with the sleeve rolled down and a big white bandage peeking out. She had her hair up and the skin on her face looked tired and clear like she'd been crying a lot, which is a specific look, and she had this little smile that was more apology than happy. We didn't hug. I gave her the USB and she slid it into her pocket without even looking at it. She said she went to the consultation today and they did a test patch and it hurt like hell, but she booked the first proper session anyway for Friday, and she had paperwork and asked if I wanted to see to prove it, and I told her I believed her. We sat there and I told her about the shoebox and that I left it on the dining table, and she looked mortified and said the letter to D was not for me ever, and I told her I didn't read it, and she cried again and kept saying, "Thank you." We talked about logistics and I told her I'd be out of the house this weekend if she wanted to come get the last of her things without seeing me, and she said yes please, and she said she was going to move in with a friend for a month and then find a studio near her work. We kept it clean. When we stood up to leave, she said one thing that sat me down inside my own stomach. I wish I'd thought as much about making you comfortable as I did about surprising you. That's probably the realest sentence I've heard from her, and I told her that. Then I walked her to her Uber because I'm apparently still polite even after a war, and she left. After that I didn't want to go home to my parents yet, so I drove to the storage unit where my brother's bike has been hibernating. I don't go often because it makes me feel like a bad owner and a bad brother, letting a machine just rot like that, but I did tonight, and I rolled up the door, and the smell hit me, that weird mix of rubber and dust and two-stroke memory even though his wasn't two-stroke, and I stood there with my keys and my bouncing stupid Snoopy dog and everything else just sat down and shut up in my head for a minute. I pulled the tarp off and the light in there is awful, so it made the chrome look like water. I didn't start it because that would have been a whole new flood, but I sat on the concrete and leaned my head back against the cold corrugated metal and I talked to him. Not out loud, because I'm not ready to be that guy in a storage unit talking to air, but in my head I told him I'd try to stop turning every single thing that reminds me of him into a landmine. I told him I was sorry about the mess. I told him I didn't know how to be an only child. I told him I was going to sell the couch because it's cursed and replace it with something that doesn't have a sexless imprint of my last month in it, and that I might paint the living room the disgusting gray he hated just to hear his voice in my head mocking me, and that I'd move the bed to the other wall so I don't wake up seeing a space beside me and expect to see his eyes staring back at me from someone else's skin. It was stupid and it helped anyway. I went back to the house around midnight with a bucket and a roller because I'm impulsive and also weirdly practical, and I put on old music and painted one wall in the living room and it already looks different. At one point my phone lit up and it was the clinic's number again, and for a second my heartbeat did the thing, but it was just an automated reminder. After, I showered in the upstairs bathroom because it's the one with the stupid powerful shower head we always joked about, and dried my hair with a towel we never upgraded because we're lazy, and then I lay down on the floor because the couch is still full of evil, and I fell asleep for 20 minutes with the new paint making the place smell like a hotel and woke up feeling like I'd slept for 5 hours. So that's where I'm at. She's moving out. She's actually doing the removal. I'm not going back. My mom said she wants to do Sunday dinner this week and I said okay. My dad asked me if we could ride the bike one last time when I get it serviced and I said I don't know, and he said he'd go with me to the shop and watch. I'm going to finish the kitchen and get a new set of plates because eating off 5 mismatched ones is going to make me insane. I'm going to put the stupid Snoopy keychain on the hook by the door so I see it when I leave and when I come back. I'm going to sleep at my place again when it stops looking like a time capsule and starts looking like a house that happened to me but doesn't own me. And somewhere in there, I'm going to try to make peace with the fact that someone loved me enough to do something this loud and this wrong at the same time, and that love doesn't mean you should stay when your body says no. It's 3:17 now and the paint is dry enough that it isn't tacky when I touch it, which is apparently the thing I've decided means you can go to bed. I'm going to try to sleep for real. I'll probably be up early anyway because my brain loves a sunrise when I'm exhausted. If anything huge happens with Friday I'll put it here. If not, I think this is the part where the story stops being about a tattoo and starts being about me learning how to be in a room by myself without needing it to be filled. Update 5. Friday happened. I didn't plan anything ceremonial for it. I just woke up too early, stared at the ceiling that still had one blue painter's tape tab I'd missed in the corner like a flag of idiot victory, made coffee I didn't drink, and tried to keep my hands busy. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb because I didn't trust my thumb not to hover and hover and hover over her name if it lit up. I took the cursed couch cushions outside and propped them against the bins with a handwritten "free, not cursed" sign because if you write it out loud maybe it shakes off, and then immediately second-guess the parentheses like I jinxed it twice. A guy in a paint-splattered hoodie from 2 doors down walked over, gave the cushions a clinical pat like he was checking a horse's flank, and said, "You getting rid of the whole thing?" And 20 minutes later he and I and his girlfriend, who was 8 months pregnant, I asked if we should be lifting furniture while a baby is clearly practicing karate in there, and she said, "I'll supervise, you idiots," did slow furniture ballet through my front door. We scraped the door frame, we lost a tiny chunk out of a foot, the guy said nothing a coaster can't fix like that was a real sentence, and then my living room was empty in a way that made the room stand up straight. I swept under where the couch had been and found 2 bottle caps, a bobby pin, £1, 40 in coins, and a hard gummy bear fossilized to the floor. I pried it off and tossed it like a dead bug, and then my phone buzzed. It was the clinic's number, just the "Your appointment is today, please don't use fake tan robot voice," which made me laugh in a way that wasn't happy. I put the phone face down and folded laundry that didn't need folding. Around noon my dad texted, "Ready?" And I sent back yep and grabbed the keys that now have this ridiculous little Snoopy doing tiny acrobatics every time I move. The bike shop smelled like old oil and teenage garage and my brother's aftershave, even though logically that's impossible. There's a guy there named Ravi who always remembered D because D was the polite kind of annoying, like he'd hover and ask a million questions and bring coffees for everyone as penance. Ravi looked at me and then passed me at my dad and nodded like we were walking in a path he already saw. "Let's bring her out," he said, and when he said her I didn't correct him because apparently machines get pronouns when your heart is involved. She's got this dull gray to the exhaust now that says you abandoned me, and I ran my hand along the tank and apologized in my head to a thing that can't hear. Ravi turned a key, tapped something with the back of a wrench like a doctor checking a reflex, and asked me if I wanted to be the one to try. I did and I didn't, but my body said yes while my brain was still standing in the doorway. I sat and it was like sitting in a memory, except the memory was heavier and needed air. The engine coughed, then caught, that low animal rumble that goes straight into your ribs, and my dad put his hand on my shoulder like I might float up off the ground if no one held me down. We didn't go far. I just did a slow loop in the lot, around a patch of dark where oil had been spilled so many times it looked like a permanent moon, and parked her again. Ravi said, very normal, very like we were talking about rotas, we'll do a full service. 2 weeks, and wrote my name on a tag like he was adding a sentence to a paragraph D wrote 3 years ago and never finished. When I got home, the cushions were gone and the not cursed sign was on my porch with a smiley face drawn on it. I took it inside and propped it against the wall like a stupid trophy. My phone had a text from a number that wasn't saved, but I knew it anyway. It's done. No photos. Just those 2 words and the single blinking cursor thing from my own unused reply box reflected back. I typed I'm glad you had someone with you and deleted it, and typed I hope you're okay and deleted that and. Then I sent okay. It looked colder than I feel, which is maybe good. 30 seconds later, stepmom picked me up. I won't bother you. I just wanted you to know. I put the phone down like it might burn through the table. Saturday I went hunting for a couch with my dad because apparently we can't sit on the floor like teenagers forever. Facebook Marketplace is just chaos. We sat 3 couches that felt like wet bread and one that was a perfect corner cloud except the seller's cat had clearly named it. We ended up in a warehouse full of furniture that had been returned because someone somewhere decided the color called mushroom was actually taupe and that made them see red, and I found one that isn't cursed, and my dad did the dad thing where he crouched and stuck his head under to check the guts and knocked on the wood like he was at a door, and then I Venmo'd a man named Marcus who offered us a free rug because my girlfriend hates it and I'm tired of losing the argument. We said yes because free is free, and now my living room has a rug that looks like a sweater and I am okay with it. Sunday dinner was loud in that way where people are trying not to be loud and become louder because of it. My mom made lasagna like she always does when she wants to fill a house and a gap at the same time. She set 4 plates without thinking, 1 for me, 1 for her, 1 for my dad, and then she put a fork down at the end like there was going to be a 4th person walking in late. I saw it, she saw that I saw it, she picked it up and put it in the drawer and then pulled it back out again and used it to serve herself. There was a moment where I thought if I blinked wrong my throat would close. Instead I talked about the service for the bike, and my dad bragged like he was the one turning the wrenches, and my mom slid a small picture frame across the table to me like she was sliding contraband. It was the funeral program photo but smaller, in a simple black frame, and she said, if you want him on a wall, pick the wall. If you don't, put it in a drawer, and that was that. I put it on the hallway table when I got home and it didn't bite. I start therapy Tuesday at 9. I called a grief counselor a friend of my mom's recommended and left a message like a teenager trying to sound like a professional, and she called back and we set it up and I hung up the phone and immediately thought of 100 ways to cancel. I didn't. Tuesday morning I sat in a waiting room with watercolors of cats on the wall. Why is it always cats? And my knee bounced so much I made the chair squeak. The room smelled like lemon cleaner and peppermint tea. She had a couch with pillows that said things like breathe, which made me want to stop breathing out of spite. The first thing I said was not about the tattoo, which is weird, it was about the bike. Then the next thing was about the couch. Then, eventually, I said the word arm like it was a doorway, and then the rest of the sentence came through after it. I didn't cry so much as leak. She did not hand me a tissue, which I respected because sometimes that feels like being told you're doing it too loudly. We were quiet for a minute that was not awkward, and I left feeling like I'd run a long stupid race I didn't train for, and at the finish line they handed me a bottle of room temperature water and a medal that says you showed up. Monday, in between those things I bought plates. This is not interesting but it mattered to me. I stood in the kitchen aisle of a shop with all the sets stacked in tidy towers with photos of tomatoes on them and felt like I was picking a personality. 8 white plates with a little ridge like a lip that keeps sauces from escaping. I put them in the cart and felt a weird surge of control, like I could end a cycle because I decided to be a guy with 8 plates that match. The cashier wrapped each one in paper like it was precious, and when I put them on my shelf at home I lined them up like soldiers and then laughed at myself and messed them up a little. She came by for the last of her things Wednesday while I was at work, the real work that pays for all these grown-up decisions. She texted I'm here and I texted take your time, and I went into a meeting and talked about metrics like any of this is the same universe. When I came back downstairs there was a key on the hook by the door that wasn't mine and a small folded note on the table that said took the shoebox. Thank you. No PS. No hearts. I went and opened the spare room closet and it was just dusty and square in a way that made the room look like a room again. I still had the ring. I didn't realize that until I emptied the bowl by the front door for the 100th time, and there it was, catching a piece of morning light like it was trying to prove a point. I put it in my pocket and texted her, ring? And she said, I was going to ask. We met at the same coffee shop as last time because I am a creature of habit even when I hate my habits. She came in with her sleeve down and a little white line of medical tape peeking, and I pretended not to notice. I slid the ring box across the table and it felt heavier than science says it is. She said, "Thank you," in a way that sounded like I was returning a borrowed coat, and then she put a small envelope on the table, and I automatically went, "You don't have to," and she said, "I know," which is the kind of answer that ends a loop. I didn't open it until I got home. There was a receipt for the first removal session and half the cash for the plates and glass she broke. I set that under the picture frame in the hallway and it looked absurdly formal, like I'd made a tiny altar to adulthood. There was an odd little grace note today I didn't expect. The tattoo artist, the same one who shaded it, sent me a message on Instagram because my profile popped up when she was tagging the clinic in a post about aftercare. The internet is a small town. She said she hoped it was okay to reach out and that be handled the session like a stubborn little soldier, and that she told her no more faces, which made me exhale in something like a laugh. I sent back a thumbs up because words seemed like a boundary I didn't want to knock over again. My house looks like someone paused a movie and then unpaused it again. The wall I painted is dry and slightly too dark in daylight and exactly right at night. The rug is a sweater like I said, and it's going to shed for the rest of my life and I don't care. The new couch doesn't have a dip where we always sat together because it doesn't know that yet. I moved the bed to the other wall, and when I woke up at 5:40 this morning my eyes went left out of habit, and instead of an empty patch of where her shoulder used to be, there was the closet door half open and the shirt I hate on a hanger. I got up and wore the shirt I hate and went downstairs and made eggs. I went back to the storage unit tonight, after work, because the service shop called to say they found a crack in a thing that has a name that sounds like two words that shouldn't be married, and I wanted to see it again before they took it away. There was a guy in the next unit playing darts with himself and listening to metal at a respectful volume, which felt very British in a way I can't explain. I sat on the concrete again and leaned back, and I did talk to him out loud this time, because if you can't talk to your dead brother in a garage with a guy named Jason, according to his keychain, throwing darts at a chalkboard, when can you? I told him about the rug and the plates and the lasagna fork thing and Dad calling the engine her, and Mom sliding across small frames like contraband. I told him the tattoo is on its way to being a ghost on someone else's skin and that I'm not policing that anymore. A moth the size of my palm hit the light and death spiraled down and then got up and did moth business, and it felt like a sign even though it was just an idiot moth doing idiot moth things. It's 0:53 now. The house is quiet in a way that is less accusing. I can hear the fridge hum and the neighbors' laughter through the thin wall because they have friends over on a Thursday like villains. There's a Snoopy keychain on the hook by the door and a small black frame on the hallway table and a couch that doesn't know any of my stories yet. I'll let it learn the right ones. Therapy again next Tuesday. Service in 2 weeks. She's gone by the end of the month like we said. This part of the story swung loud and then got small, and the small is where I'm going to live for a while. If something big happens, if the bike takes its breath right, or if I fall through the new rug, because that would be exactly my brand of stupid, I'll write it. Otherwise I'm going to sit on my uncursed couch with 8 matching plates in a cupboard and let the paint dry on the version of my life that looks back at me and doesn't flinch.